So a judge in New York just spit out a whole lot of truth about the misdeeds of Trump and company. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So before we take on this 8-page ruling by a New York State court judge that is devastating to Donald Trump, Don Jr., and Ivanka, will you indulge me just 30 seconds of housekeeping? As you may know, here at Justice Matters, we're up and running 7 days a week, posting a legal analysis video each and every day. This is an all-volunteer operation, and we can only do what we do thanks to the people who support us primarily over on patreon.com. So if you have any interest in supporting our mission, our efforts, our content, please feel free to go over to patreon.com. You can sign up to become a patron, and if you do, I will send you some Team Justice and Justice Matters stickers and a personal handwritten note of thanks. You'll also have access to all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff regarding how we operate here at Justice Matters. And thank you to the many people who have gone over to Patreon and are supporting our efforts here at Justice Matters. You know, we view ourselves as sort of free agent democracy fighters, and we really appreciate that so many of you have joined that cause, have become part of Team Justice, and support us on patreon.com. Now, with that, let's turn to this remarkable development in the New York State civil fraud investigation into Trump and company. So, did you see this 8-page order by a New York State court judge, Judge Engoron? Apologies if I'm mispronouncing the judge's name. This order was issued in a subpoena battle motion. New York State Attorney General Tish James subpoenaed Donald Trump, Don Jr., Ivanka to testify in connection with her civil fraud investigation of Trump and the Trump Organization. And of course, Trump and his children filed motions to quash. They said, we shouldn't be made to sit in a deposition. Friends, this 8-page order is unlike anything I ever saw as a prosecutor in my 30 years. And I saw a lot of judicial orders. This was as blunt and candid and direct and ominous for Trump and company as anything I've ever seen a judge put in writing. Let's just do a random review of some of what we see in this order. First of all, the judge denied Trump's motion and said, no, you and your children, Ivanka and Don Jr., will sit for depositions in Tish James' civil fraud investigation. Here is some of what the judge said. At one point in his written order, he said, I reviewed thousands of pages of documents subpoenaed by Attorney General James. And here's what he said with all of that knowledge, all of that information that he reviewed. He said, when a state attorney general commences an investigation and uncovers copious evidence of possible financial fraud, she has a clear right to question under oath the organization's namesake. That would be Donald. That is some seriously ominous foreshadowing of what's to come for Trump and company. Then he said this, equally remarkable in my experience. He said, had the Attorney General's office not opened an investigation, not subpoenaed Trump and Ivanka and Don Jr., that would have been a dereliction of duty. Let's unpack that. The judge is not saying that Attorney General James had the discretion to investigate and subpoena the Trumps. The judge said she had a duty, and if she hadn't done it, based on the evidence he reviewed, it would have been a dereliction of duty. I urge you to read this 8-page ruling. There are also some really fun references to how when Donald Trump's accounting firm, Mazars, walked away from him and said we can no longer credit all of the reports that we issued for the Trump organization, basically because you were feeding us garbage numbers. Trump's lawyers tried to spin that as a complete exoneration. That just moots out the civil investigation being conducted by A.G. James, the criminal investigation being conducted by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, moots it all out. This judge said, no, I'm not going to let that stand. And he said, this is worthy of George Orwell. War is peace, night is day, black is white. And he said it's also worthy of a claim by a Trump administration once about alternative facts. Talk about the judge throwing shade on the propagandists like George Orwell and Kellyanne Conway. It's great reading. It's 8 pages, and I highly recommend it. Okay, let's talk about some of the implications now of the court's ruling. The judge said, no, Don and Don Jr. and Ivanka, you will sit for depositions in A.G. James' civil fraud investigation. First of all, Trump will appeal it. He will lose, and hopefully he will lose promptly. And then he will waltz into the deposition, and we all know what he's going to do. He's going to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Now, some say Donald Trump has the right to remain silent, but he may not have the ability to remain silent. We'll see. His attorneys will probably staple his lips shut to keep him from testifying because his every word is an admission. We've all seen it. So I predict he will invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination over and over and over again, with the only remaining question being, will he break his son Eric's record? Because Eric sat for a deposition and invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination more than 500 times. I predict Donald Trump will probably break that record. Same goes for Don Jr. and Ivanka. What are the implications of Trump invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination at a civil deposition? First of all, I know the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination is mocked and derided and made fun of. Even Donald Trump says only guilty people use it, only mobsters invoke it. There's some truth to that. But it's also an important right, a bedrock fundamental right that we have under our Constitution. And that's a good thing, because without it, law enforcement could compel us, force us, coerce us to incriminate ourselves. So yes, it is much mocked and derided, but man, it's an important right that we all have. If we committed crimes, the government can't force us to incriminate ourselves. So when Donald Trump pleads the Fifth, that can be used against him at a civil fraud trial. At a civil trial, a jury can be told, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incriminations hundreds of times. You may use that against him. You may draw negative inferences from that, tending to support your conclusion that he should lose in this civil fraud lawsuit. So it can be used against him in a civil trial, but it cannot be used against him in a criminal case. That would violate the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. So Donald Trump will be indicted. Not sure which jurisdiction will indict him first, but he will be indicted. And any and all juries that decide Donald Trump's guilt or innocence will never be told that he pleaded the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, because that's a constitutionally protected right and it can't be used against you once you invoke it in a criminal trial. Can be used against you in a civil trial, which is just about people arguing over pots of money, most typically. So that's a quick stream of consciousness breakdown of the 8-page ruling that was issued yesterday. And hold on tight, folks, because there's more to come. I know I've said this before. It remains true. The investigative circle continues to tighten around Donald Trump. His days are numbered. I talked yesterday in a video about having to balance, the frustration and the desire for justice. And we remain frustrated, but we need to exercise patience because it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's not coming quickly enough, but justice is coming. And justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.